Welcome back to Aging in Place Strategies and Answers. And today we're going to talk about a different kind of topic, but it's definitely related to the aging process. Now, if you're a woman in a certain age category, you might have been sitting in a business meeting. You might have been at home around the family dinner table. You all kinds of settings, but I'll bet this question will resonate with most women. And the question is it hot or is it just me? And so I hope you're laughing right now because I love this question and it's what women do because, we say things and then we confess that we're miserable publicly if we're sweating to death and nobody else is. And then we have a good laugh and then we sort of move on about it. And so if you've asked yourself that question, you are in good hands today. Maybe if you haven't asked that question, you're starting to dress in layers just because at some point you're going to get warm and that you need to peel off a layer or two. And I am with Carin today, and I just saw her say, "Oh, this is why I have a tank top on underneath and a jacket on top." And thank
Exactly.
heaven that people sell those things because when you need to have layers, you need to have layers. But there's others that have some really ghastly night sweats. I mean, let's just call it what it is. It's just ghastly and it wakes you up and they're night sweats and oh my gosh, you just feel like going to bed and trying to sleep is a lot of work. And so we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about what this all means. And so for women in this stage of life, it could be called menopause. But men, don't stop listening because you're going to want to know this information if you're married or have a partner or somebody that you care about that seems to be changing before your very eyes. But also, I want to be the bearer of education and say men go through another kind of stage, which is called andropause, which honestly you don't hear anything about except for that you do see a lot of commercials helping men get back to sexual function. So, we know it's real. So, no denial here today. So, my guest has been defying traditional boundaries from the start. She is the founder of Hot or Just Me, and she has a beautiful name. Her name is Carin Luna-Ostaseski, and she was the first American woman and Hispanic person to create a Scotch whiskey. And I have to say that had to have been an interesting journey. I can't even imagine it. The name of the brand, in case I think it's still manufactured, isn't it,
Called
Corinne?
Sia. Yeah, it's still
Sia?
out in the world. Yep.
Zia Scotch whiskey. It was an award-winning blend, and it was launched through a record-breaking Kickstarter campaign. And it's left a significant mark on the spirits industry, which I think is fantastic. But her brand was bought by a distributor. And because of that, she decided to start the entrepreneurial spirit fund, which is provided over $350,000 in grants to underserved entrepreneurs. Corinne continues championing the next generation of entrepreneurs in her ongoing commitment to helping people thrive. And today she dedicates her time not only to her family, but her mission is to help women thrive through perimenopause and menopause. And I just want you to know, Corinne, that meet quarterly with women entrepreneurs in healthcare field that I work in. And when I hear them talk, I hear their passion. I hear their passion and their mission and why they got into their business model. So I bet this is your passion project. Is that true?
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
100% scratching my own itch.
Well, very good. Sometimes that's the way things are invented or companies come into be. But you saw the personal need and then you moved to fill that with your creative marketing background and then your entrepreneurial spirit. And of course, the success with your Sia Scotch whiskey had to say, I can do this. So that is awesome. So, Corinne, say hello to my listeners and the reasons why you started your company called Hot or just me?
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, Linda. And yeah, I guess the short version is I'm 47 years old and my hot flashes started when I was around 42, 43. And it was a simple question I asked myself, and pretty much everyone around me was, "Hey, is it hot or is it just me?" And first, I realized that it was mostly just me. And second, that I was in a stage of life called perimenopause. I had other symptoms that followed, like brain fog, hair loss, night sweats, low libido, all kinds of stuff. And came to realize that my primary doctor, my OBGYN, was not the right fit for me. Eventually found the right doctor, and she helped me navigate conversations around hormone health and HRT. And along the way, I found some amazing products and services that made a huge difference in my life and navigating all of these symptoms. And so I thought to myself, what better way than to share this with other women to help them navigate this journey and let them know that they are not alone.
And that's the wonderful thing about what we do in our businesses, whether it's a podcast or whether it's an online store. But it's that passion project that really has the intent to say, there might be some things that you might want to take a look at. And I'm going to say from my own, experience that this has worked for me. So you try it and you decide. So wonderful. So when you went to your doctor, all right, and you had that initial conversation, what was the recommendation? You said your first doctor
Yeah.
was not the right fit. So what
No, so
happened in that journey?
it was interesting. It was at a time when I didn't know I was in perimenopause, right? So you have all these symptoms kind of start out of nowhere, and you start to kind of question, like, am I going crazy? What's happening here? This is like all these new things. So I think that first weird Google search was, why is my period so heavy? Or then, I was starting to find myself like with a little bit more PMS than usual, a little bit more of the blues and trouble sleeping, where I just kind of wake up in the middle of the night. And so just starting to feel like, hey, let me talk to my doctor about this. And
Hmm.
he was really quick to say, okay, well, let's put you on some SSRIs or antidepressants for your mood and some Xanax for your insomnia. And there you go. And I was just sort of like, felt like, no, I don't want to fill these prescriptions. Like this is not right. Something is beyond this, right? And, I kind of went back to my circle of friends. I call it girlfriend medicine. And, you always have kind of the older friend that's been down the road and says, hey, it sounds like you're in perimenopause. And I was like, what's that? And she said, well,
Yeah.
it's kind of the stages leading up to menopause. You've got, anywhere from 3 to 10 years before you actually hit the day that you don't have your period for 12 months, which is menopause. And it sounds like you need a new doctor. So she pointed me to a website called menopause.org, which is fantastic. It's a wonderful resource, and it has a link to find what's called a certified practitioner. So this is a doctor who's gotten more than just the basic 3 hours, if you can believe this, that they get during med school on menopause in all of their training. So there's a program that doctors will go through for an extra level of certification, and it means that
Wonderful.
they've been trained on menopause and hormone health. And so, sure enough, I found my new doctor, a woman who has gone through menopause herself and has dedicated this chapter in her career to helping other women. So we had wonderful conversations around what my background was in my health with my hormones, if I took birth control and what my reactions were then.
Hmm.
Personally, I did IVF for my children. And so I had to take a lot of hormones during that
Absolutely,
time.
you did.
And so during that and what my reactions were. And she, helped calm me down and let me know that those reactions would not be as severe because the hormones that we take during HRT are a lot less. And the reality is, it's going to be a little bit of a trial and error as we go. So I haven't started that journey yet because my symptoms are not yet to the point where I feel like they're interfering with my life. Right now, it's just more of like annoyances, if you will. But I am
Yes.
ready to, to step it up soon because from what I've read and what she told me is the sooner the better when it comes to HRT.
Interesting. So you said that you had gone to the doctor, and then all of a sudden the horses were in the gate and then off and running, but you just didn't feel good about that. And I always tell people that it's important when you are going in for any kind of consultation to not leave your common sense at home.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't feel right and you don't understand why it's being recommended, and then understand what the risks are or what the side effects are, then asking more questions or getting more clarification is important. And so you did that. And the website that you mentioned was menopause.org. And so
Mhm.
you found a practitioner with an extra level of education that could help you. And women are uniquely made. All right. And so we might have 10 symptoms that are seemingly unrelated, but knowing that we're in a certain stage of life, it could indicate that it really, truly could be menopause. Now, Karen and I have met, and we were sharing that we want our audience and listeners to know that we ourselves are not practitioners, that we are not doctors, nurses. We do not pretend to have those certifications and those licenses, but we have a spirit of education about us and about what we're trying to do with my podcast, with her website, and all the information that she has on her website. So we want you to remember today that even though we're talking about this topic, that the purpose is to educate and encourage you to know what kinds of questions you should be asking your doctors or other professionals that you might be working with. Certainly, many women have found relief with a hormone replacement therapy. HRT is the three initials, hormone replacement therapy, and these drugs do have their place in symptom management, but there are some known risks that someone might be want to be aware of, and to also know what your family history is. So some of those risks are breast cancer, blood clots, stroke, vaginal bleeding, and headaches. So on your website site, I noticed that you said it wasn't right for you. Um, and so you what are the reasons for not jumping into that right
Yeah.
away?
Yeah.
What is your thinking and your process in this? So because that your experience is going to help somebody else listening today.
I hope so. Yeah. So what was wonderful is my doctor and I talked about it. She said, what was it like when you took birth control as, a young adult? And for me, I was having, violent mood swings where I was just sobbing into pillows, just hysterically crying. And, I tried a couple different, brands of birth control, and it was just the same common reaction. So there was something in my brain chemistry that just wasn't reacting well to these. So I decided to kind of just chose not to do birth control. And, as life would have it, in a funny twist of fate, when it was time for me to say, like, okay, now I want to have kids in my late 30s, I just couldn't. And so I had to, turn to in vitro fertilization. And that time it was a really hard situation because it was like, you think of yourself as a woman of, why can't I do this one thing I'm supposed to be able to do, right?
Right,
And so,
exactly.
there's a lot of, stigma around it. And so I'm very vocal about, my openness around that treatment and that, and I have this beautiful family. I have three children that are the light of my life. So I'm so happy that I went through that process. But during it, it was really like, again, taxing emotionally. You feel like a little bit of a science experiment, poking yourself with needles
Yes.
constantly and in random places as well. And then, the ups and downs of it working or not working.
Right.
And then, also through a miscarriage, you still have to continue taking the hormones. And so there's a lot of just sadness that goes along with it. So I was also facing a similar issue, right? With just like the emotional ups and downs, the mood swings, the crying uncontrollably. And it was just so challenging. And so when I brought all of this up to my doctor, she said, well, the good news is compared to the amount that you were taking for IVF, this is nothing, right? This is like tiny, tiny amounts. So no worries there. And it is going to be a little bit of a, kind of a trial and error with different, types of hormones and different levels and maybe even different modalities, maybe, creams or patches or pills or, there's so many versions now. So just really kind of learning, well, what symptoms am I suffering from the most and what do I want to solve for? And so at the time, the conversation was a little bit more around my hot flashes and my night sweats. But the reality is I've been able to kind of, offset these with some of the items and products that we have on our website. So I'm not quite ready to start HRT just yet, but I have talked to her about it's probably something in the next couple of years that we're going to start working on. And I'm looking forward to it. I've read a lot of wonderful books like The New Menopause by Dr. Mary Claire Haver, The Menopause Brain, and those are just fantastic resources that I encourage listeners to read to learn a lot about your hormone health. And then once you have that information, then to be able to go to your doctor and say, here are the symptoms that are on track with perimenopause and what I'm looking to resolve by taking them.
Yes. And I love women and the way we share information. And I love that you said that you got together with your doctor girlfriends.
My girlfriend medicine.
Yeah, your girlfriend medicine. You had, because that's what women do. And
We
that's how we
do.
find out information. And because we do that, then we're able to really get a fuller picture of what's going on. And we're all different. We're
Mhm.
all are going to go through things very different, but I'm a little bit more like you. I tend to be have that kind of questioning, like, is this really the best thing for me, or is this was the one size fits all?
Yeah. And what
You
can I
know,
solve with nutrition, with lifestyle changes, with supplements, before I kind of, go the pharmacy route. And also knowing that, like to your point, all of us are having different symptoms at different times. Some of us may not have many, some will have a laundry list, and some will have different severities. I think the more common ones, if I may, the top 10 of perimenopause, in case listeners are looking
please.
for what's common, are irregular periods. So, maybe it's a change in your cycle days, maybe it's
Mhm.
longer or shorter, maybe just the volume during your flow. You might experience hot flashes. So, what that is basically just a warming sensation, feeling in your face and your neck, your shoulders, your upper back. And your brain thinks these like slight temperature fluctuations are actually more drastic. So, triggers these hot flashes, and then you get the counter to that, which is the sweats, right? So your body is trying to cool off from the feelings of hot or of heat. And so the same thing, night sweats are a little bit more pronounced, where you just kind of feel like you wake up in a pile of water or sweat. And you're like, what's happening here?
Yes.
It kind of couples with insomnia, which is, just obviously we all know what that is.
Hmm.
Vaginal dryness and low libido kind of go hand in hand. There's mood changes and irritability, little joint muscle aches, brain fog, walking into a room and wondering, why was I here again? And then, yeah, weight gain. And then a new one for me was anxiety. That was just sort of like, hey, where'd this come from?
Yeah, where
And
did
then
this
just
come from? You've been a
exactly.
successful creative marketing person with a successful Scotch brand, and now all of a sudden you're having this anxiety and
Yeah.
this total meltdown. And so the good thing is that when we share these symptoms of what we're having and we share that information, then we usually are able to get a better perspective about what's really happening in our life. And I have to say that along with Corinne's beautiful curated products that she has on her website, the thought always is in my mind is what can I do personally that will help me to feel better?
Mm.
Which is a little different than what most people think. And I'm just going to be honest about that, that most people are saying, what can I take? What is the doctor going to give me that's going to help me feel better? But you just said that, what your symptom management was going to look like. And would that have really helped overall with the symptoms or just short term? And we never know how we're going to react to a medication. So, as you're going into those appointments, Corinne, what would you say to your doctor if you walked in and said, "This is where I'm at now that you have all this knowledge, and you're
Yeah.
going to coach me into going into the doctor and what? How would I begin that conversation?"
I think the first is before you even walk into the room, like, is this doctor menopause certified? And you can do that by, looking up their credentials or, just asking them, have you gone through extra levels of certification?
Mhm.
But you can find this on menopause.org, so you almost don't even need to waste your time, right? And then you can reach out, phone, email, and ask for a referral to another doctor in their practice or within your network, and then have that conversation that way. If one of the doctors listed isn't in your geography or in your zip code, there's so many wonderful telehealth options out there right now for virtual consults like MIDI Health, EverNow, Alloy, and most of these are covered by health insurance. So it's good
Wonderful.
to be able to go that route. And then once you're in the doctor's office, now you can have an educated conversation with someone who is qualified and be able to talk about your symptoms. So hopefully you've been tracking what kinds of symptoms you have. If you look at the end of Dr. Haver's book or a wonderful website called Morphus, Morphus, they have a list of about 100 common symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. You can almost go through them like a checklist and say,
Uh-huh.
here's what I'm experiencing and how severe is it? How often is the frequency? And be able to go to your doctor with this information so you can have an educated conversation about, what treatment plan they might want to put you on.
Oh, I like that. It's good to go in with knowledge, and it's good to go in with solid facts because doctors, nurses, clinicians are really good at what they do, but they're black and white thinkers.
Yeah.
Is it or isn't it? I don't know what to do in this in between stage. So if you can show that this has been an experience that you continue to have, but sometimes we do get into those meetings and we don't communicate clearly, and then they really don't know what to do with that information.
Yeah. Or you say
They're,
something like, I get them all the time. But it's like, what's all the time? Is it once a day? Is it 10 times a day? Is
yeah.
it once a month? Yeah.
Yeah, they're not detectives. And then sometimes when we don't get the responses we want, then we stop visiting the doctor. And so the goal here is always to feel better and be able to proceed with your life, right? Well, I did a quick little research thing on andropause because I thought there's going to be some men listening today, and you're going to think, oh, yeah, my partner, my wife, or this person. Yeah, I see that. I see that in them. But guess what? The symptoms for men are very, very, very similar. I think the only one I didn't see that they don't get is night sweats, or they don't get the hot flashes. And I don't know why we're so special that we get them, but we do. So men, if you're listening today, just know that this is something that you're going to see as well. And you can do your research and figure out the best way to help yourself feel better if you're going through these experiences. So, brain fog. And, honestly, I don't remember hearing that much about brain fog until COVID. And they talked about brain fog being part of long COVID. But it is something that you mentioned that can be very specific to menopause and andropause. And it's that mental sluggishness, sort of like I'm just not like myself. I'm not processing things the way I normally do. Some confusion, and some difficulty concentrating. So be aware that brain fog can exist. And, you know, folks that are a little older than you, Corinne, will say, well, people will think I have dementia, right? But for you, it's just brain fog. But for me, it's dementia. But brain fog or difficulty concentrating is a stress reaction sometimes. So your doctor will know best, and please do what is right for you, and so that you can feel your best. Well, Corinne had an article that she sent to me, and it was her interview with Time Magazine. And one of the things that really stood out to me was that sleep should be a priority. Okay. And sleep is so vital to our health. It's actually, from what I've read, the way our body resets itself. It heals itself at night. It's so important. When I always said, when I laid my kids down at night and I got them back the next morning, when I went and lifted them out of the bed, I felt like, oh my gosh, they've grown up so much. Just laying them down and picking back up in the morning, I felt like that's where all that growth kind of happened. So that is important. So, Corinne, can you please expand on that notion of the importance of sleep? Of course, it's going to be interrupted during this time. There's going to be times in our lives where it is interrupted, but we live in a culture that we give badges of honor to the folks that need the least sleep and work the hardest. Is it true or false?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Sleep is it's everything, right? It's sort of I like to give the analogy of, almost like a set of dominoes. So I'll walk you through it. So you have a bad night of sleep, and then you wake up the next morning and you're kind of grumpy, a little moody and irritable. You probably make bad food decisions.
Yes.
You decide to take an extra cup of coffee that day. So now you're extra caffeinated and it leads to more jitters and anxiety. You probably skip the gym. And so now you're not getting the endorphins or also the strength that we need for our muscles and our bone health. And then you go through your day and you have brain fog and concentration issues because you're exhausted. And then when it's time to be intimate with your partner, you're just not in the mood. So all of these dominoes have fallen because that first one was just you didn't get a good night's sleep. And
Hmm.
so I like to say, if you can kind of optimize on three levels for what you put into your body, what environment you're in, and what you do when you wake up in the middle of the night. So we can kind of break those down one by one. So,
Okay, that sounds
think
great.
about what you're eating, right? Like, did you have a heavy meal or is it ultra processed foods, lots of sugar? So I like to advise people to just have a nice, light, healthy meal earlier in the day. And this is what we watched our parents and grandparents doing, and then we've kind of countered it to staying up late and eating junk food and watching Netflix. And so, like, let's go back to how it used to be. And then, it's funny, as someone who was in the alcohol industry for 10 years, I've now kind of switched from being someone who drinks a glass of wine or a cocktail at night to now, hey, you know what? I've learned that if I do that, I wake up in the middle of the night. So I've become more of a day drinker.
Yes.
And then caffeine's another big one, right? So I've cut out any kind of afternoon caffeine, and trying to eliminate my morning cup as well, because I'm finding it's really not having an impact on my energy on the days that I'm tracking if I did or if I didn't. So why bother? And so that's another big one. And then I've learned that magnesium supplement really works for me at night before bed. It helps me have a deeper night's sleep. And if I take it in the morning, I do get some energy from it, but it's already absorbed by the time it's bedtime. So I like to take it at night before bed. And
I
so
noticed
that's,
that on your website.
yeah.
What is it? What kind of supplement is it oral or is it? Uh,
It's just a capsule, yeah.
okay.
And Morphus has a great sleep magnesium as well. I like their products, and they're the ones that track all the perimenopause and menopause symptoms. Great quality
Okay.
and very transparent ingredient sourcing and everything that we look for these days. And then you
Wonderful.
think about your environment. So I now sleep on the side of the bed where the air vent is. And so as close to that cooling unit as possible. And we set the AC somewhere between 60, 67. It definitely drops as the night goes on and then warms up as the morning comes so that we're not freezing the whole household because of me. And
Yes,
then,
yes.
and then same thing in terms of environment. So blackout curtains, or you could wear an eye mask. We have these on the site. Same thing for cooling sheets. There's this wonderful company called Lusame. They make the temperature regulating bed sheets. They also have pillowcases if you don't want to go the whole route. I also encourage people to wear earplugs if you have a partner that snores, so you get like deep sleep, or maybe use a white noise app if that's your thing. And then in terms of waking up in the middle of the night, because sometimes it's going to happen, right?
Yes, yes,
So
it
yeah,
does.
if it's you're getting up in the night to go to the bathroom a lot, maybe drink less water towards bedtime. But I do like to keep just a cold glass of ice water by the bed in case I do get like a hot flash to kind of help cool myself down. And then if it's just a thought that won't let me get back to sleep, I do have a small journal with a pen next to the bed, and I could just write it down, and it's there. It can find me in the morning. And then we also like to use there's this wonderful app called Yoga Nidra. It's just a YouTube video that it's a beautiful kind of calm down body scan, or Calm the app and Headspace both have wonderful sleep meditations as well. And then, I like to tell people that there might be days where you just won't go back to sleep, right? That you're
Yes,
just sitting there fidgeting, your mind's, you've done it all and nothing has
yes.
worked. And so those days I say, you know what? It's just not my day. And I'll just get up and, use those extra hours to get something done. And then, just have a little bit of like peace with myself about it and not be too hard on myself. And then just know that that night I'll just go to bed a little earlier than usual, but just to have a little grace with ourselves when we do wake up and can't go back to sleep.
But it is thoughtful and it is mindful and it is planning. And
Mhm.
these things do work because you've personally used, like I was thinking of the cooling sheets, you
Oh,
know,
all of the above. Yeah.
yeah, that they work and that they're there and that they were invented because somebody realized that this really did work. And so, what I love about this is that, listeners, I want you to take note. I will have this information in the show notes, of course, where you can get to hotorjustme.com. But when you visit Carin's website, she's got practical tips, she's got information that you can use to navigate this time in your life. She's got an amazing online store with products that are curated and tried, and they will help you to get through these life transitions so that you're doing it in a woman centered, powerful way that will help you to be successful in the other parts of your life. And I thought it was really important that we have this conversation because now we have men and women going through this life changing situation at the same time. And because everybody's going to hit this at a different stage in their life, sometimes women are going through this as they're trying to take care of their aging parents. So now you have young children that you're or children that you're trying to raise or launch, and you probably have a job that you're trying to be successful at, and then you have aging parents that have needs, and now your body is changing. And so I just think it's important for us to acknowledge that and bring that to the forefront, and that you know that you're not alone, and that, like you have mentioned in the Time article, it was have these conversations with your partner. If you're wondering why I am fanning myself and sweating, or I wake up, or I'm going to bed with the least amount of clothes on as possible, and you're freezing and you are only allowed one blanket, it's because it's all about me. But it's important that you are open and honest in recognizing these things because this is what really helps people be successful. So, um, some things that I saw, and I don't know if you agree with this, like a schedule. And I know nobody likes schedules, but really we do better when we're on schedules. I finally learned this at my age that, sticking to a rising schedule, even if you've had a bad night, I think that's really important. When I've met with seniors who'll tell me, well, I had a really bad night and they're still in bed at noon. I said, what did you do when you worked? And they said, oh, No, if I had a bad night, I got up and I just went to work. Well, that's what we do. So those kinds of things can really carry you through when you're having difficulties. When that sleep gets interrupted, that's when all kinds of crazy stuff can happen. So I like that we brought that out. And then whatever stage of life you're in, taking care of yourself should be a priority. And I always tell that to caregivers. And I know that that kind of falls on deaf ears because they just haven't figured that out. But my listeners know, Corinne, that I was taking care of my mom who had moved in to my home so that I could provide some more oversight for her and some safety. And I thought, I'm a mom. I've been a mom. I had 3 children. I can do this. And 24 hours went well. When I got to the next 24, I thought, what just happened to me? And then I thought, you know what? I'm doing pretty good. And then I realized that I could not do this for the long haul if I did not take care of myself first. So a problem solver like me says, nobody needs me at 5:30 in the morning. Let me figure it out. I can do this, right? So it was a good discipline to start. So just know that any time is a good time to start a healthy lifestyle because it can help you with all kinds of symptoms or stresses that you're going to be having. But I do hope that you go and visit Corinne and her online store. You've heard her journey. You know she is a real person, and you can empathize and resonate with what she is going through. And she's done the homework. She's got it all put together for you. So if you're listening today, Aging in Place listeners get 10% off if they make a purchase at her online store. So thank you so much for doing that for our listeners at Aging in Place,
Oh, you're so
because
welcome.
it makes such a difference. Any other tips you want to give us before we close out for today?
I think that we've covered so much of it. I think having those conversations with our partners are really important. Being open and honest, and using those I messages. I'm noticing. I'm feeling this way. Are you noticing things for yourself too? And just being able to have a commonality, not only with your partner, your children, and even yourself. Right? I'm feeling frustrated, or I'm feeling overwhelmed. I need a break. And so it's really
Yeah.
important just to have that kind of self-awareness and that curiosity around it. And to your point, Linda, just for women all over the world to realize that we are not alone in this.
So it's okay to ask the question, is it hot or is it really just me? Because that stage can really last a while, can it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could last, 10 years even, right? And
Yeah.
so even beyond menopause, so it can be for a while. So it's just sort
Yes.
of, how can you make yourself comfortable through these
Right.
changes?
And we don't want you to think that you're psychotic, that there's a reason that this stuff is going on. And so let's get it solved. So thank you also for sharing about the experience with your a physician and where to go to find a certified practitioner. And all those online helps were very helpful too. So, ladies and gents, don't forget to go to hotorjustme.com, and I challenge you to look over those wonderful products that she has on her online store. And thank you so much for another great business model and for inspiring us today, Corinne.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Wonderful.